Welcome to Cop to Corporate. I'm Sam, your podcast host, and this is the podcast where we unpack one of the most challenging career pivots out there, moving from the structured, high stakes world of law enforcement into the fast moving and strategy driven world of business. Today's guest is Eric Kready, a distinguished security professional whose career spans more than 2 decades of service and leadership. Eric served more than 20 years in the United States Army before transitioning into the private sector, where he's built a respected career in both security operations and intelligence roles. Beyond his day to day responsibilities, and one of the reasons why he is here, Eric is deeply committed to supporting others on their own transitions out of service into the corporate and private world. So he mentors veterans and law enforcement personnel into public and private sector security careers, and he's leading a major global initiative designed to help active duty military and law enforcement professionals successfully enter the civilian security field, which we're going to talk about today. And I'm really excited about it because I looked it up and I wish that I had had it when I had done the transition. So please welcome to Cop to Corporate, Eric Kready.
Thanks very much for having me, Sam. Really appreciate the opportunity to share a few minutes with you today.
Yeah, of course. So we're going to definitely get into Operation Career Change, but let's start from the beginning. So you've got many years of service in the Army and you were a military police officer. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So I left home 3 days after I turned 18 and joined the Army, went to basic training, and I spent 8 years enlisted. And then as a staff sergeant, I went through a commissioning program, finished my degree at Penn State, and was later commissioned as an officer in the Army and retired over 20 years of service as a military police officer.
Congratulations. And what drew you to the police career?
You know, when I was a kid, I always admired law enforcement personnel, and I wanted to be a Pennsylvania state trooper when I was a kid. And I was told then that I was too short. And I learned later that that was a complete fabrication, that I was absolutely just fine to be a Pennsylvania state trooper. But instead, I joined the Army and served my country for 20 years, traveled to, have been to over 42 countries and speak multiple languages, not very well, but uh, just got a really good global perspective on how the world operates. So it worked out. It worked out rather well.
Yeah, you could argue that you had, like you said, a much more diverse career, maybe more dynamic. You did a lot more than you would have done if you had just stayed in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's kinda what it was really about for me, being a young kid and just ready to go and see the world and do big and great things, so it worked out well. I have no regrets.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service. 20 years is a really long time to stay in one place or one career. So I imagine if that happened, you joined the military right after you turned 18. So that is all you knew since the time that you were a teenager, since the time that you left home. So I'm sure that knowing that you were going to leave was something that might have been daunting for you.
It was, and that's a really good point you bring up. It's all I knew, uh, aside from part-time jobs as a kid, which of which I had many, and most of us do when we're a kid, but, as far as an actual profession, all I knew was Uncle Sam. And so when it came time to prepare for that career transition, uh, to use your word daunting, it was that's an understatement because unfortunately with a career transition, you oftentimes don't know what you don't know, and it can turn out to be a bad time when you find out.
Yeah. So what did that look like for you? You knew where you were about to hit 20 years. Did you plan? Did you not plan? What was your process there?
Yeah. So usually in the military, it's kind of like this unwritten thing of your last year is when you start preparing for your career transition. And a lot of that has to do with all the medical processes you have to go through so that Uncle Sam can discover how much you got broken over the years. And that takes a long period of time. And then there's some other transition things. But what people don't really take into account is all the other very, very important things that matter with a career transition. And what's interesting, you mentioned during the introduction, the reason I also assist law enforcement folks in their career transition, not just because I'm a retired military police officer, but because I recognize that very, very, very few law enforcement agencies have a transition plan or a transition program for their officers. Now, Uncle Sam's program for transitioning military isn't the best on earth, but it's far better than nothing. And that's what we find a lot with our law enforcement personnel. So I take a lot of pride and effort in helping law enforcement professionals with their career transition because they don't have a lot of the advantages and resources that we have in the military preparing for transition.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that a lot of people and a lot of people aren't thinking ahead necessarily because we have a lot of cops who leave early in their career or midway through their career and just think that they can just get into something immediately, but it's really unfortunately not that easy. So to have resources like Operation Career Change, I think is it can change a lot of people's lives. So let's kind of move into that. So you got ASIS and Operation Career Change. Talk to me about how you're involved with both.
Sure. So, a great transition is talking about my career transition. And there was a gentleman that I served with over the years, and he and I had very, very similar career pathway in that we were both enlisted. We both went through commissioning as a program as a staff sergeant. We both turned in to officers and retired at the same point in time as military police officer. So we had almost identical career pathways, except he was 1 year ahead of me. And I remember him telling me on his way out the door, Eric, join ASIS International. And I said, absolutely. And 10 seconds later, I forgot what he said until a year later when it was my turn. And I had to reach out to him and say, hey, what was that organization you told me to join? And it was ASIS International. And so I did. And like many of us, and like you said yourself, Sam, in the intro, I wish I'd have known this before. And so ASIS International is the oldest and largest association of security professionals in the world. 75 years old, almost 35,000 members across the globe, 234, I believe, is the last number I saw, chapters across the globe. It is the largest resource and the largest organization of security professionals and unbelievable amounts of resources, mentorship, advice, guidance, learning opportunities, and professional networking. And where that comes in and why it's important is because I've been a member of ASIS for the 13 years that I've been retired from the Army. And of those 13 years, 12 of those I've been actively serving in different volunteer positions and leading different projects and programs. And one of those is Operation Career Change. And what Operation Career Change is that's the big name for a project that was that is currently built and developed by military veterans and law enforcement professionals, both active and former, from all branches of service, and including we have volunteers from 6 different international countries, uh, this year, military and civilian, military and law enforcement agencies across the world. And what we're doing is we're building this portfolio of resources to help military and law enforcement personnel in their career transition. Those resources fall into 3 buckets. And the first one is a career mapping product. And the second one is a translated statements of accomplishment product. And the third one is a translated acronyms and verbiage product.
I went to the website and I've got it up here right now, and it's really cool because when you go to the Operation Career Change page specifically, you can choose your branch of service, or you can choose if you were in federal or metropolitan law enforcement. And by clicking on that, your resources they get more specific. So I just went based off of my career to the metropolitan law enforcement page, and it's really cool because they you guys offer literal career maps where it goes 5, 10, 15, 20 years and so on. It shows how much experience that you have, like what that equals to a security career, right? And then you can connect to the professional certifications.
Yeah, a couple things about that, Sam. So, referring to the Metropolitan Police products there specifically, those products were built by officers of multiple ranks. We had several lieutenants, we had sergeants, we had detectives from Atlanta, Philadelphia, Washington, Charlotte, all different agencies. So these aren't built by one person with one specific view on their career. These are products that are built by working groups of multiple people from multiple agencies to give the best sort of image of what a career looks like. The second thing I'd like to point out, talking about the career mapping, what's important to note is that career maps are not meant for someone to look at a map and say, there I am, scroll down, that's what I should be doing. That's an easy way to interpret it, but really what it's a career map is meant to do, it's meant to show with respect to where your career is going, you now understand what your counterparts or what I like to call competition is doing as they traverse their career. And I use the term competition because really that's what they are. They're not your counterparts, they're not your colleagues, they're your competition because they're holding the positions that you want to have or they're going into the positions that you're trying to get to. And in order to be competitive with those folks, you utilize such a product as a career map to understand what it is they're doing, what positions they're holding, what education or training they're attaining, and what professional certifications they're getting. And I'm glad you mentioned certifications um, because professional certifications, whether you're in the security industry or the banking industry or a teacher or a doctor or whatever profession you're in, professional certifications are becoming more and more desired in the civilian workforce. Primary reason, yes, it shows competency, absolutely. But why they're desired so heavily more and more every day is because of that competitive factor. When we see an opportunity get posted and 300, 400, 500 people apply for that position, they have to develop criteria. They have to develop qualifying and disqualifying criteria because no organization could ever hire or excuse me, interview 500 people or 300 people. So they're using professional certifications more and more as a qualifying criteria to get that number down to a manageable amount of professionals that they want to learn more about and have conversations with and get into that challenging pool for the hiring process.
Okay. And to jump back a little bit, this is for security professional certifications. But why, if you were in the military or if you were in law enforcement, why do you want a security career? So many people go into it, but what is it about the security career after these service positions that is so fulfilling and rewarding?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, first off, it seems like a natural flow for many of us because that's what we've been doing in our first career. But what you find missing oftentimes in a second profession, in a second civilian career, is you kind of find missing that sense of purpose, that need to give back and continue to do what you do. And in the security profession, you can more often than not find that sense of need, that sense of belonging, that sense of responsibility that comes with it, and the high demand, and you can continue to give back to the overall profession of supporting and protecting others.
Absolutely. So say you're a local cop, you're about to retire or you're looking to leave. What's the 1, 2, 3 step for using Operation Career Change to your advantage or the best way that what it's made for?
the 1, 2, 3 step, there's actually probably about 26, 27 steps, but, really no, I'm just joking. Really, it's about planning ahead of time. It's often difficult to decide when that transition comes because sometimes there are other factors that decide for us when transition day is gonna happen. Sometimes we can make a plan and we can stick exactly to it, but we have to be flexible and we have to be ready. And so the earlier you can start developing that career transition strategy, the better off you're gonna be if you have to react. So what that looks like, things like building a professional network. We all talk, we think, well, I know a lot of these officers that I work with day and night, day in, day out, been with for 20 years. Same thing happens in the military. I've served with these people, everything. I've known these folks for years. That's great. But that professional network is not going to help you in chapter two. The key mistake that military and law enforcement make while they're on active duty is not developing the network where they want to go, where they're going and where they want to be. They focus on the now and not the future. So that's key number one is to start developing those things. And then there's a whole process to go through regarding precision targeting and development and things like that. But to your question of how can Operation Career Change help those law enforcement officers who are preparing to make a transition, they can pull up these documents. We talked about the career mapping. We'll talk a minute about the second product that's in Operation Career Change, and that is the translated statements of accomplishment. And what those products are is they are literally statements of accomplishment that are taken from real evaluation reports, real award citations, live reports. They're redacted for, personal and operational intelligence, obviously is taken out, but everything else is exactly as it was written. And that's what you see on the left side. On the right side are those accomplishments translated into civilian vernacular, and they have the impact statements. They have the STAR technique applied to them. They have all the things that the civilian world is looking for, what the hiring manager is looking for, what the talent acquisition scout is expecting to see in a resume or a cover letter or an introductory email. And again, like the first document we talked about with all those police officers that built the mapping, this document is also built using real report statements and evaluation statements from police officers. So they are absolutely real and genuine. We're fortunate to have a lot of human resources volunteers who help with these products to make sure that we're hitting all the marks and having true impact statements and things like that. So those are the things that those transitioning law enforcement personnel you're speaking of, those are the things that they can use uh, to get ahead and prepare with their career transition that's available for free as part of Operation Career Change. And I gotta, jump up and down and stomp my foot. Free, capital FREE. They're absolutely 100% free. There's no firewall to get there. There's no paywall to get to it. When you go to www.asisonline.org, you'll see that you do not have to sign in as a member of ASIS to get these products.
That's amazing. Resources at no cost are really important. And I also think it's great that you have HR professionals helping you out with this too, because they're the ones that are looking at resumes. They're the ones that are doing the hiring. So you're getting the inside scoop from cops and from HR. And are you involving military in this as well too for the resources you have for them?
Yeah, absolutely. For the Army documents, there were four um, U.S. Army personnel, both enlisted, warrant, and commissioned officer. Same with the Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard. Currently working with, again, I mentioned that this is international, ASIS International. So Operation Career Change is an international umbrella of documents. So we have Canadian volunteers, we have volunteers from Brazil, from the UK, from Nigeria, from India, all over the world, working on building these important products to help our heroes transition. And it's all about we've all experienced some pain. And Sam, you mentioned it yourself. I know I've said it, and I wish I had a dollar for every time someone has said to me, "Wow, I wish I had this when I was going through my career transition." And that's sort of the origin story of Operation Career Change is the trials and tribulations of what Eric Kready experienced 13 years ago. Uh, I said I was going to do whatever I could to help others not have the same struggles and challenges that I faced.
I love that you use that to fuel you. So, uh, to get back to like what the steps are. So you said to develop your professional network, they can go to this website and use the free resources. But what about after they have the resources? Then what?
Yeah, that's a perfect question. So I mentioned that ASIS International is the oldest and largest society for security professionals. And one of those very, very powerful pieces of being a member of ASIS International is that you now have exposure to all those like-minded professionals who are already where you're trying to get to. And I say that mostly because we do have active military and active serving law enforcement members are already members of ASIS International, which has come a long way. 13 years ago, that wasn't as much of the case, but I think the word is finally starting to get out there that it's important to get involved in things in the civilian world before you become a civilian. So that's sort of like one of those take home points is you got to look to the next step and see what's happening in the next step and start doing those things to prepare so that your transition to that footprint is easier. Those resources, those 34,600 members across the globe, those human beings, those like-minded individuals who are already there is an unmatched professional network already prepared for you.
Yeah, because of this podcast, I've talked to a couple of people who are part of ASIS International, and you guys are all really terrific and knowledgeable. And I can tell that everybody just really wants to help one another. Like that is one obvious thing from everybody that I've met from this.
One thing I do when I'm in a public forum, I don't do this all the time. It has to be the right setting, but I did it last year in front of an audience of about 2,000 people at at the GSX event, which is the largest annual event that ASIS holds. It's the annual seminar, and I stood on stage and I asked everyone in the audience who is prior or current active duty military to please stand and remain standing. And then I asked everyone who is prior law enforcement or active law enforcement to stand and remain standing. And I asked everyone to look around. And what do you think you saw, Sam? You saw in an audience of 2,000 people, well over 50% of the members were standing. So that shows you the the population of civilian security professionals that have made that transition into that second space and how many of them served in the military and or law enforcement. Huge number. And it wasn't just at that event. I do that often when the time and place is appropriate and I get the same results. It's always at least half of the people stand up.
Beautiful. They all have a heart of service. So, Eric, to tie it up, what advice do you have for these transitioning law enforcement, military professionals into the corporate world? Like, what, from your experience, what can you tell them who are considering or who have done it already? Like, what's your final word?
I'll say three things. One, start early because transition day might be tomorrow and you don't know it. So the time to start preparing for transition is today. That's the first thing. The second thing is a professional certification. I'm glad you brought that up, Sam. I strongly believe in professional certifications. They can definitely be a game changer for someone looking for a career transition. And the third and final piece is there's no reason to go it alone. Hundreds of thousands of us have already made the journey you're about to make. Reach out to all those individuals. Easy to find, very easy to find via LinkedIn or ASIS International. People want to help. People are available to help, available to give you advice and support you. All you have to do is be proactive and reach out to those folks for help.
That's a great segue. Where can people find you?
People can find me on LinkedIn. I have a moderately unique last name. I don't know of anyone else on the planet named Eric Kready. So I would say the easiest way to find me is via LinkedIn. If you're an ASIS member, you can find me through the directory there. But for the world of 7.4 billion people, probably easiest to find me on LinkedIn and connect with me and reach out to me, and we'll set up time to talk. There's a lot that goes into career transition. There's a lot of steps and components to a successful strategy, and I'm happy to help in any way I can to whoever needs it.
Thank you so much. You've been really a fantastic guest, and I think that Operation Career Change will change a lot of lives. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing that with us.
Thank you very much for having me, Sam. The opportunity is very much appreciated.
Thank you.
This video was recorded and produced by Just Talk Studios, the premier video podcasting studio in Bellevue, Washington. Visit justtalkstudios.com to learn more and book your session today.